Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Learn Academic English. Today I'm continuing my series of videos about how to write correct sentences in English. In the last video, I talked about the difference between dependent and independent clauses. You'll need to know that information, especially about what a clause is, to be able to learn the information in today's video, although I'll give you a quick review in just a moment. So today we're going to talk about fragments. Fragments are a very common mistake that I see in writing. It's a mistake that both English learners and native speakers of English make. But it's not good form. So if you are using writing, especially for school or work, fragments are a mistake that you're going to want to make sure you avoid. First, in order for us to talk about fragments, we need to remember what a clause is. A clause has a subject and a verb. And a fragment is a piece of a sentence. It's a part of a sentence. I have a sad face here because it's not a complete sentence, and for that reason, it is a mistake. So let's see a few examples, and then I'll show you how to correct them. First, I prefer teaching in person because I like to meet people. So you'll notice here that we have a subject and verb here, and this sentence expresses a complete thought. This sentence is correct. It's an independent clause because it has a subject and verb and it expresses a complete thought. But the second sentence, because I like to meet people, this is a fragment. It's not a complete sentence. The reason for this is that in this sentence, we have the subordinating conjunction because. And when we have this conjunction, this turns into a dependent clause. And if you remember from my last video, a dependent clause is like a baby. It needs something. So a baby needs its mother or father. A dependent clause needs the independent clause. They go together. So think for a moment about this sentence. If I say to you, because I like to meet new people, you're going to feel confused. That thought is not complete. Because you like to meet new people, what? So for that reason, this dependent clause needs to be connected to this independent clause. This is a fragment. Now, this is a very common mistake because when we are answering questions, we often answer only with the dependent clause. For example, why were you late? Because my alarm didn't go off. But when we are writing, we always want to make sure that when we use because, that it is connected to an independent clause. Okay, so we'll look at how to correct these in just a minute. Second, working from home has downsides. For example, my mom. So in this case, I want to give an example about my mother because my mother works from home, and through her experience, I've been able to see some of the downsides or the disadvantages of working from home. But this is not a sentence. Why? Because we have a subject, but we have no verb. Every sentence needs to have a subject and a verb. The verb here is missing. Next, I love to travel with my family. Or by myself. Again, this is a sentence that has a subject and a verb. It expresses a complete thought. It ends in a period. But or by myself is not a sentence. It's not a clause. There is no subject or verb here. It's just a piece of a sentence. It's a fragment. Next, teaching online has an advantage, which is flexibility. So what happened here? Well, we have an independent clause. We have a sentence. It has a subject, teaching. It has a verb, has. It expresses a complete thought. But in this one, this is a fragment because this is what's called a relative clause or an adjective clause, and it is not a complete sentence. And finally, teaching online has disadvantages, such as less communication. Again, we have an independent clause, a sentence with a subject and a verb. It expresses a complete thought. But the second one, such as less communication, well, there's no subject and verb here. So, in order to check your work for fragments and to correct them, you want to check for, first of all, Does your sentence have a subordinating conjunction? And I'm going to do a whole video just about subordinating conjunctions. But for now, remember that a subordinating conjunction is a conjunction that makes a dependent clause like because, since, after, before, when, while, if, unless. If your sentence has a subordinating conjunction, like this one, then you need to follow the rule of DC, IC or IC, DC. Now, these abbreviations, dependent clause, independent clause, or independent clause, dependent clause. This is how you make a sentence. And if you need to review that, that was the topic of my last video. Okay, so here we have the subordinating conjunction. We have a subject and a verb. This is a dependent clause. It cannot be alone because it does not express a complete thought. So to fix this sentence, we're going to put these two together, small b, and we have this pattern. Independent clause, dependent clause, no comma. Okay, let's look at the next one. Working from home has downsides. For example, my mom. So what we need to do here is that we just need to finish the sentence. My mom will be the subject. We need to add a verb and probably some more information. We could say, for example, my mom works from home and has some experience with the disadvantages. And then we would continue. All right, the next one. I love to travel with my family or by myself. So here we're just going to put these together. And the next one. Teaching online has an advantage, which is flexibility. Well, this is a relative clause, and relative clauses are like a dependent clause. It cannot be alone, so we're going to put these together as one sentence. And finally, teaching online has advantages, such as less communication. This is a phrase to give an example, but we need to connect these together to make one sentence. So again, when you are writing something, you want to go back and check your work, see if you have any subordinating conjunctions in your sentence. If you do, make sure that you follow one of these patterns, and make sure that every sentence has a subject and a verb. Some of these examples, like for example, my mom, that did not have a subject and a verb. Or this one, or by myself. That one did not have a subject and a verb, so it is not a sentence. The last thing I wanted to mention here is that fragments often happen when you know that there is a pause. But remember that often when we're speaking, we pause to show a small break in the thought, and when we write, we use a comma for that. So often with these, they should be connected with commas, not with a period and a new sentence. This series will continue with videos about how to avoid comma splices and run-on sentences, which are two other common mistakes. Also, how to join clauses with coordinating conjunctions, correlative conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, and adverbial conjunctions, and how to add more variety to your sentences to take your writing to the next level. I will make a practice down in the description box below, and you can practice with me in the comments. Please don't forget to give this video a like if you found it helpful. And I wanted to mention that you may have noticed that I'm rearranging the camera setup. That's because it's winter here and it's very cloudy where I live, and there's not a lot of light coming into my room. And so I'm having to move the camera to get better light. So thanks again, take care, and I'll see you back here in my next video.